What do you think about when you hear the term bariatric-friendly food? Boring? Maybe tasteless? What is bariatric-friendly food anyway? Is it easy to prepare and yummy to eat? Coming up, I want you to meet culinary dietitian Regina Ragone, who has spent years creating delectable recipes for Family Circle and Weight Watchers magazines. She has test kitchen secrets to share for making bariatric-friendly food you will love.
You spoke and we listened. Our chewable multivitamins are now dye-free, meeting your demand for more options. These dye-free chewables join our calcium chews and multivitamin soft chews in the dye-free lineup. Visit procarenow.com and use code Susan10 to save money.
I'm bariatric dietitian Dr. Susan Mitchell, ex-radio dietitian turned podcaster. You're listening to the Bariatric Surgery Success podcast. Are you frustrated with all the confusion when it comes to nutrition, especially online? Why don't you just eat this food? No, don't eat that food. Well, switch to intermittent fasting or the keto diet, or heck, just reset your pouch. It's enough to make you give up and say, forget it. I don't know what to do. Well, I do. I know what to do. It matters where you get your nutrition information. When it comes to your bariatric surgery, nutrition is very specific. So let's cut through the nonsense. Let's get what you need to know right now. I created the Bariatric Surgery Success podcast to give you accurate nutrition information you can count on. Simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies that work. I want you to feel well every day. Get out there, do the things you want to do. So you're in the right place, friend. Let's get started. And if you love the Bariatric Surgery Success podcast, would you take a moment and write me a review on Apple Podcasts? I'd appreciate it so much. Do you receive my weekly newsletter called Breaking Down Nutrition? If not, what are you waiting for? It's a quick way to keep up on nutrition for your bariatric lifestyle. You can sign up today. It's free on my website at breakingdownnutrition.com. You'll be the first to know about helpful nutrition tips, recipes, giveaways, product specials, and the latest podcasts and upcoming interviews that you don't want to miss, just like the one today with Regina. Joining me today is culinary dietitian Regina Ragone. You can always find Regina in her kitchen dreaming up something scrumptious for us to eat. Working as a food editor in the test kitchens of Family Circle, Weight Watchers, and Prevention magazines for many years have honed her skills in creating delectable recipes that will feed your soul and your cravings with a nod towards nutrition. Today, she shows you how to enjoy the bariatric lifestyle with a focus on delicious food that fuels your transformation. You can find Regina's contact information in the show notes. Hey, Regina.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, Regina and I have known each other a lot of years. We've spoken together, worked on various projects, and we actually came together. We met when I was doing some work for Target some years ago, and we both loved cats, and that's what got us started. It, not
Two
just
cat
food.
mamas.
two cat women, right? Oh, nothing. We don't mean anything about the dog people. That's okay. So don't hate us because we love cats. But throughout the years, Regina, I've eaten many wonderful recipes that you've created, and I'm thinking about the bariatric friendly food because it is also real food made from tasty recipes with a nod to nutrition, but particularly with a focus on quality protein and a good source of high fiber carbs. It's not boring and it's not tasteless. It's food you can love and you can eat with your family and friends in the smart portion that's right for you after your surgery. So, Regina, you've always told me, and you have taught me a lot about cooking throughout the years, that one of the keys to getting started just in your kitchen is to have a great knife.
That's right. I always tell people when they ask, what's the most important thing for my kitchen, for starting up a kitchen? And I say, one good knife. You don't need a whole set. You need a good chef knife, 6 to 8 inches. Because if you have a dull knife, it's really easy to hurt yourself, believe it or not. A sharp knife will prevent you from hurting yourself. And it also, when you cut with it, the precision cuts you make give you a lot of the juiciness from the different, like picture a pepper or tomato being cut and the juices that come out. You have a nice sharp cut, you're going to get those juices. And it makes cooking and prepping so much easier.
Compared to if you have a dull knife, which starts to feel like you're sawing.
Exactly. And so many people don't realize they have a bad knife until they get a good knife.
Yeah, I remember one time you remember the time you were in my kitchen? This was probably a few years back. You were prepping something and you said, these knives are dull.
And I had to sharpen it, and you can sharpen them. So that's one thing, people need to learn how to sharpen it.
And so, I do that now. I take them in regularly to get sharpened. And what you just said makes all the difference when you're cooking. So I'm not sawing anymore.
Yes. You have to excuse Susan and I get excited when we talk about food. So sometimes I jump on her words. So it's the food that does it to me.
We love food. Okay, so we got a good chef knife. You don't have to buy those big kits that you see advertised, especially at the holidays, just a good quality one. But what goes hand in hand with that good knife?
A cutting board, which I never realized the importance of how a good cutting board could also make your job in the kitchen so much easier. And, we kind of were always taught that a plastic cutting board is better than a wood. But recent studies have found out that wood has antimicrobial properties. So it actually is better. The key, but either one is good.
Yeah, either one is good.
The key is to have two separate ones, one for your proteins and one for your fruits and vegetables, so you don't have that cross-contamination. And make sure you clean it afterwards, but have two separate ones. It makes life so much easier.
Right. And it really does prevent you potentially getting sick if you've just cut raw chicken on one and then you bring over fresh vegetables and do it. So
absolutely. I like the wood. I just got a nice big wood one. It's like butcher block, and you want to make sure it doesn't slip and slide, and that you could cut without it making any kind of, dents in the cutting board. The thing with plastic I've noticed is that you get those deep cuts in it, and that actually is where the bacteria can kind of store.
And so I really like to put them through the dishwasher, and when they start reaching a point where they really look cut up, it's time to get
rid of them.
Get rid of them and start fresh. So getting them clean is so important.
Yes.
I was thinking about cooking because in terms of how many techniques that there are, so many different ones, that sometimes you can feel overwhelmed and go, I really don't know a lot about cooking. I don't even know where to start. So do you have a go-to, a favorite cooking technique that's easy for everybody to learn? What is it? I know what it is, but I'm going to guess.
It's roasting, because you can roast anything and it's easy, and it's just anybody can do it, and you can do it with a lot of everything. I love roasting for vegetables, and I do eat a lot of vegetables, and I know your audience does too. When you set the oven at 450, which you kind of need to roast at a good high heat, and you put your vegetables in there, they get this great caramelization, and that's from the sugar in the vegetables coming up and hitting the heat. So you get a nice, like, round, delicious crust, and it just brings out the flavor. I do recommend a little bit of oil, because you have inside the cells of the vegetables, there's a lot of spaces, and that oil kind of fills it in. Not a lot of oil, and so that you get moisture. So yes, you could do it with any kind of vegetables. Chop up a bunch of vegetables and put them in the oven, and that's a great way to do it.
So when you're saying oil, do you use EVOO, or do you have a different oil that you like that takes a super high heat as well? Or does it depend on what you are
I personally roasting? Like olive oil. You know me, I'm Italian. I use olive oil. It doesn't have the highest.
Shame if you say anything else.
The highest smoking point, but I haven't found that to be a problem. Canola oil is fine. I just like the taste of olive oil, and I pretty much use it for everything.
That's pretty much what I do too.
Yeah.
And I know you were telling me last week, and you have this wonderful garden right now, and for the first time you have some eggplant.
Yeah,
And so tell us
finally.
about the roasting experience, what you made with your eggplant.
So I was so excited because we've been trying for years to grow these like little eggplants and nothing's come up. And then we went for the old fashioned kind, and they're nice and plump and good. So last week I had to grab one, nice fat one, and I set up my oven for roasting, 450 degrees. I got a nice heavy baking pan sheet with a little bit of a rim to it, which is what I use for all of my roasting vegetables. Lined it with parchment paper, which makes for very easy cleanup. And then
Yes, I love parchment paper.
it's
Easy
so
cleanup.
great. Yes. And so I sliced the eggplants into 1-inch rings, and then I put them on the sheet, brushed a little olive oil that I had actually flavored with some spices. You can use any spice combo you want:
Mhm.
garlic, basil, oregano. I had like Mediterranean spice blend. I brushed it on both sides, put it in at the 450, and make sure it gets to it's at 450 when you put it in. Um, Baked it for 20 minutes, turned it over, and then I baked it another 20 to 30 minutes. And you'll see it'll start to get really brown and crispy. And I was so surprised. I never did eggplant like this because it got such a crispiness. It was almost like frying it. And that's how the traditional eggplant is made, frying, and you use a lot of oil. This didn't need it. And the eggplant was so creamy and delicious, but yet it was crispy on the outside.
So you could do two things with that, right? Just serve that as your vegetable side dish,
Yes.
but you could also turn it into a Parmesan if you were going to use your proteins and other things that way,
Ex-
right?
Exactly. You could turn it into a Parmesan, put some fresh tomato sauce on it, a little bit of mozzarella cheese. The other thing is they also use, eggplants used in a lot of Middle Eastern cooking. So say you went with a Middle Eastern spice, you could also serve it with like a side of yogurt or, like Greek yogurt and maybe some, or, the Greek yogurt that they mix with the cucumbers, tzatziki. That's a delicious, yeah. And that's like a little meal in itself.
Oh, that's a great idea. So something that comes to my mind, which I think is confusing for so many people who are just starting to cook and just doing from simple recipes to extravagant. While we're talking about roasting, let's talk about salt. How to salt, when to salt. Give us the
Like
test kitchen secrets about what you do with salt, because do you add it at the beginning, the end? Is it based on the recipe you're making?
One of my favorite books is Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat. And there is a quarter of the book on salt. So you can talk a lot about salt. And why this is such an important aspect to cooking is that it really brings out the flavor in food. It amplifies the flavor. When I was young and working in the test kitchen for the first time as a dietitian, I didn't add any salt to my food, or I added very little.
Right,
And
because we always were taught keep the salt low, which we still try to do reasonably
yes,
so.
and every chef that I would have taste my food in the test kitchen would say, it needs salt. It needs salt. So I started learning how to use salt. One of the best salts to use is kosher salt, like Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Get a box of it. It's really inexpensive. And the reason that is good for cooking is that it dissolves quickly. And so it flavors the food quickly. So you're not keeping to, when you taste it, it's not salty. It dissolves quickly, and it has like a really good surface area, and it sticks to the food better, believe it or not, than like the crystallized salt. So you don't need as much. I put on a little bit like for the vegetables before I cook, not a lot, a little bit, and then I put it on towards the end. Um, it does make a big difference, like if you salt your chicken before you actually put it in, because it just brings out, like I say, the juiciness of it. And I think it's something just to experiment with a little. And like I said, there's all kinds of salts out there, but we mainly cook with kosher salt in our house.
And so what is the difference when you're talking about salt? I've heard you in the past talk about a finishing salt. So
Yes.
what is a finishing salt versus a kosher that you're using throughout the recipe? To me, it sounds like you're adding this at the end of something. So is it something that's fresh or the very end of a recipe? And how do you know when you need a finishing
It's
salt?
Susan saying, here we go. She's got to go a little bit fancy here with the flaky salt. And this is not a must have,
Yeah,
but
I
I
don't even
do.
have finishing salt, I
I'm
don't
going to
think.
get you some. My favorite is one called Malden Sea Salt. It's from the Malden Sea in England. It's very well known, and they even have a smoked version. It's not expensive. It's a few dollars for a small box, and it's like flakes, believe it or not. It's flakes, and that's how it comes from the sea. And you just take it and you crumble it on food. And whoever I've given it to, they just kind of become addicted to it. It's perfect for like a sliced tomato or like something and you're just going to put it on right before you eat it. And you don't need a lot because you're getting that, like I say, that surface area, that big surface area of the crystal.
So would that be good? So on fresh tomatoes out of your garden, would you hit them with just a little bit of a finishing sauce?
It's perfect. And, we put it sometimes on our salads before we dress it. It gives that another punch of flavor.
Okay. So I'm thinking about too, this option now when I'm of fresh from the garden, but not everyone has access to fresh. People my listeners, my wonderful audience all over this country and all over the world. And some people have access to a lot of fresh and others not so much. And I think frozen food has gotten a bad rap, and I don't agree with that. In fact, I use a lot of frozen food. What's the frozen food hack? What's your take on that idea?
Well, you probably get that question all the time. Is it okay to use frozen food? People don't think it's as nutritious, but it's actually more nutritious because they flash freeze it. These companies have come a far way from when we were growing up, and you'd get like a block. It was like be a frozen block of like peas and carrots or whatever. So we've come a long way, baby. But something that is flash frozen, the vegetables are like right there. So I use it a lot, actually, because I don't like to necessarily buy the berries, even though they're fresh now. They're very expensive, and you can get so much more. You can get organic berries in Walmart, in Trader Joe's, and Costco. You can get great berries frozen. Yes. They're perfect. And you can even use, like, I have frozen pineapple tidbits. You can eat them like a snack, just plain like that, So I use that in a lot of things. Mainly, that's all I use is for fruit. And then for vegetables, there's like these red pepper. It's actually cooked red pepper and onion, a mixture that is so delicious and really inexpensive. And I use it like to put in like an omelet or it's a quick go-to. So I think frozen is great.
Oh, I do too. I keep frozen peas all the time because I like to make a chicken noodle soup with peas.
That's
I
a
like
great
to
idea.
do frozen spinach. I will keep that because if you just say some kind of pasta dish, I like to do a manicotti, let's say, with a stuffed using spinach and that. So I also use a lot of frozen fruit in smoothies that I make protein smoothies with. So all of these things are easy ways to do that. So before we wrap up, any other last test kitchen secrets that you want to share?
Well, the reason I got into culinary nutrition was that I was a very overweight child, and my mom taught me about cooking. And my mom, who's a dietitian, taught me about cooking and how it was so important to learn how to cook well, to feed yourself well. And that has been my goal in life, is to teach people, just learn how to cook a few things. It's going to make your life so much happier. It's not a life of deprivation. It's a life of joy if you can learn how to cook. And there's so many varieties of things to try, fruits and vegetables. I think, Susan, we had like 3 fruits to choose from when we were growing up.
Yeah,
Apple, banana,
not like today, right?
Now there's so much out there in the frozen option. So I would say, be open, play a little bit, and don't be intimidated. Nothing can really go wrong, So it does. It's fine, Just try and play a little bit and have fun and enjoy it.
I agree. These tips are so good, Regina. They're easy to put in place. I appreciate your time and for you coming on this morning and sharing some of the things that you learned in the test kitchens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan.
And remember, you heard what Regina said. Bariatric food, any food, is not tasteless, nor is it boring. It's real food that's healthy and delicious, that doesn't take a lot of time to prepare, and it meets your needs after surgery. Why? Because you are worth it.
Bariatric Surgery Success with dietitian Dr. Susan Mitchell is produced and owned by Practicalories, LLC. All rights reserved. Remember, the content provided on this podcast is for information purposes only and doesn't create a patient-provider relationship. It's intended to provide reference material and is not designed to provide medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider regarding any medical issues you have relating to symptoms, conditions, diseases, diagnosis, treatments, and side effects. Podcast guests express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions which do not necessarily reflect or agree with the host, Dr. Susan Mitchell, or Practicalories, LLC.